So the next one here, Anuttamo Duraadarshaah Kritajna Kritiratmavan, or Duraadarshaah, one who is unassailable. Demons such as Ravana, Hiranyakashipu and Shishupala were considered to be very powerful. Lord Vishnu killed all of them. Even as a child, Lord Krishna killed several demons like Putana. It is blasphemy to think that someone can, however powerful he or she may be, defeat the Lord. The Lord is unimaginably powerful and unassailable. Even the demons like sense organs and mind get defeated once the Sthita Prajna experiences the supreme Brahman due to elimination of tendencies or vasanakshaya. Vasana and Akshaya. We will come back to this in a moment later and also get to the shloka that is cited in the book from where we have extracted this. The same is said by Krishna in Gita in the Sankhya Yoga chapter 2 shloka 59 in the words Rasopyasyam, which is Param Drishtva Nivartate. Passion or sense organs too get retreated in the case of Sthita Prajna. We visit this in a moment. Kritajna, which again is one who knows all actions of all beings. Krit means action and Kritajna is one who knows every action of every being. Lord Vishnu is one who knows everything happening everywhere. Kritajna also means one who does not ignore even small offers of devotees like flowers, fruits, etc. and bless the devotees for their noble intent. But we'll revisit our previous name, which was the 81st one, which is Duraadarshaah, or one who is unassailable. Within that, we saw that word vasanakshaya, which means he vanquishes many demons, and sometimes those demons also are within us. And in our previous elaborations, we kind of came to an appreciation of how the divinity is there inside all of us, and there are senses that come into us. So this vasanakshaya is vasanas is the word we'll attempt to get an appreciation of. So vasanas are the impressions, and experience that we have leaves upon us. It's an impression. So you experience something, and that experience leaves an impression on us. So that impression you could call as the vasana, or those occurrences that happens around us, and those occurrences that form our characteristics or our personality. So those are what the vasanas are. So how do we manage to develop a good personality? It has to be through the filtering of those impressions that are attempting to influence us, right? So there's something that happens outside and it has an impact in us, and that impact develops our personality and characteristics. So that means there could be wrong things happening, there could be right things happening. So we use the word discrimination in our earlier elaborations. So we need to use that discrimination in order to enhance and build our personality. So there's a many of us definitely would have heard of Michael Angelo, who's celebrated as the greatest sculptors that the world has ever had. And he, when talked to, had told that the sculpture, when he's given a stone, how do you go about? So he said, the sculpture is already there. All I do is I have to chisel away the extra piece. The sculpture is already there in that stone. All I do is chisel away that extra that is there. So we too, all of us, have to use this chisel of our manas, or the psyche, to filter the many impressions that are coming upon us. The Hindu system has got a wonderful theology or approach to this. So this Hindu system, they did a deep study of this human psyche. The system essentially believed that man or human is at the center of all of this universe, and they studied that man very deeply about 6,000 years ago, right? It's not some Freudian doing psychology, but these rishis studied that human psyche, which is the very center of all things of this universe, to be the one who influences and can be influenced as to how he should progress and make himself realize his own capacity, right? So they had done a depth study 6,000 years ago, and they arrived at that the psyche, or the manas, as we have kind of come to appreciate it as we have grown up. So the psyche or the manas is the tier in that human layer. We talked of many koshas earlier. So it's the tier in the human that performs the job of what they labeled, right? The rishis labeled it as the sankalpa vikalpa. So the job of the manasteer of the human is the one that does the sankalpa vikalpa, is how they corroborated and agreed upon, or something that allows for an outside signal to have an impression on you or not to have an impression on you. So we use the word gatti manasu, right? So when you are going through a phase of ups and downs, you are asked to make yourself strong. So that strength is what the Hindu system says. It's the job of the manas to do the sankalpa or make it your own, let that impression come in, or vikalpa, or to reject that impression when something is attempting to influence upon you. So you use the chisel, as Michael Angelo said, you use this chisel of the manas to filter the outside stimulus that is impressing on all of us. So let's maybe understand this a little closer to our heart and see how we could use it to apply to our own lives. So let's appreciate this through the beautiful story of a frog and a coin. I'm sure many of you have already enjoyed that during your growing up days in Amar Chitra Katha. So there's a frog that is jumping around in a little garden. And one day, as it keeps jumping around, doing its thing, it comes across a shining silver coin. And it is very impressed and it's intrigued by what it is. So it picks up that coin, takes it into its burrow, and keeps it there and looks at it every day in great joy. And that it has acquired something new of wealth. So it has grown in personality with that impression that has come upon it. And it moves about with great pride with that silver coin that it has acquired and kept in its burrow or in its bank account. So one day, as it is going with all its pride and happiness, it finds one elephant walking about in that garden area that it is living in. And it finds it very angry that the elephant has intruded upon its territory. So it goes to that elephant that is grazing and feeding itself there and turns around and gives that elephant a big kick and takes pridely and says, "Get it off here," right? With that attitude, it gives a kick to that elephant and goes back and looks at its coin, its bank balance, let's call it, and takes great pride and happiness as to what a wonderful life it has got. But now, did anything happen to that elephant? No, it didn't even really realize that it got itself kicked by a frog, a meek little thing. Did it respond? No, it just kept doing what it's doing, and it moved about and went on further to another grazing patch that it had. So overall, I would say through the story, we all have to develop that elephant-like capacity, a strong manas in which anything that comes from outside, anyone who might have acquired a pride, false or bad, false or true pride, may have influences upon you. And you have to be like that elephant, what maybe astrologers claim and tell you by looking at your horoscope saying you have Gajakesari Yoga, right? That Gajakesari Yoga is having the forbearance to have and withstand anything that comes upon impressions upon you and influence upon you. But now, as you start building this capacity, there is one last bench student, right? There, the mischievous one. This last bench student asked the question, okay, with that capacity, I have come to not just survive this world, right? I got this titiksha, I got this strong manas, now I can survive the world. So you are telling me, teacher, that you can survive the world, but not just survive, I also know how to thrive in it. And with a good personality that has come to me, I not only survive, but I also thrive in it. But what's the use of all this? What is after this? And that is where this beautiful sloka from the Bhagavad Gita comes in. I will try to go word by word, so just bear with me. It goes as Vishaya Vinivartyante Niraharasya Dehinaha. Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehinaha. Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishtva Nivartate. Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishtva Nivartate. I think every word is soaked in deep meaning, but the summary or the quick annotation for that would be: sense objects fall away from the abstinent person, leaving the longing behind. We talked of vasana, right? Vasana is the impression. So here it is saying that the vasana is left behind. There is an impression and you have somehow gotten rid of that impression, or rather the stimulus that has come in, which is the what do you call, the abstinent person. Now you are no longer craving for it. That is, you are abstained. So the impression, stimulus sending object or occurrences or energies, you try to abstain from it. However, the sense of longing or that vasana has remained back in you. So that's what it is trying to say. But again, we are trying to attempt here to answer the question of that last bench student saying, what's the use of me gaining, or what is beyond? It's not he's saying what's the use. He acknowledges, the last bench guy, that I am not only surviving, but I'm also thriving, having acquired this capacity, this Gaja Kesari Yoga, as it said, or the Gaja capability of having the discretion, as the corporate world says. Pick the battles you want to fight in this organization and reject the battles, right? So you have got that discrimination as to which one you will fight, which one you won't fight, which means you don't fight with the frog. That's the Gaja Kesari Yoga that has come. And once you know in clear discretion that you will pick some and not pick some, you are not just surviving, but you are also thriving. So that's the soakingness of this whole shloka, where it also attempts to bear upon that though you have given up, there is impressions that are in you. Now, how do you manage that? So let's attempt to bring this close to our hearts and allow for our manas to make the sankalpa of this. Let me just go ahead. So this longingness behind is what has come. So say this abstinent person, maybe we'll take a little deeperness experience as well. So let's say you have given up smoking, as an example, right? You've given up smoking, but the desire to have a smoke from that cigarette has still remained inside you. So that is where you could think of the articulation or the analogy of you having abstained from a thing, but its impression has left in you. So how do you go through that is what the student's question is. But on realizing that superpower which is inside you, you even obliterate, or the desire also, that impression or that vasana also gets obliterated, or it gets diluted, is what is told here. So the best, again, analogy to get an appreciation will be to see it as an example that I can cite is, let's say you're in the darkness and you're trying to perhaps show to your child or a little kid the other organisms that could be around in the darkness. So you would have taken a torch or a flashlight and you may point to different objects and say, oh, look at this, look at that, right? But as you keep showing, maybe you're showing the trees, you're showing different animals, bark of a tree and birds that may be running around in the night, you are able to point the light at an object and bring out some capability. But if we attempt to do the same, that is, right, in a daylight, that is, if you say, like, let me show you how the sun looks, and you take this torch and put that light of the torch or the flashlight onto a sun, do you think you will find that object getting splashed? No, because the light of that torch or the flashlight has completely dissolved into the brightness of the sun. So, which is where you could take the analogy of how the divinity that is there, that you realize that is already inside you, and allow it to throw its light upon, and suddenly you feel those impressions also, which is the driving factor, the light or the tube light, we'll call it, that has flickered and come into you and is motivating you to do something, to go acquire that vasana object that you somehow has abstained, but its impression has remained, and next trigger that comes, that impression really attracts you. But once you have that tube light flickering, overpowered by the brightness of the sun, you will happily switch off the light in your room and let that sunlight come in. So hopefully our last bench student has enough appeal in this and he will attend our classes again. But with that, let's move on, my friends.